Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Spectator Sports. Before we dive into all the Week 7 action, please subscribe to the page and follow our TikTok and Instagram pages. There was a lot of content that came out this weekend regarding the CMC trade, the ICC T20 World Cup, the Lakers' early struggles, and a special shout out to the Eagles secondary. So if you want to have more on that, follow the pages and subscribe and get all your content from there. Atlanta took on Cincinnati, and this is a matchup of two 3-3 teams. We didn't really expect both of these teams to be here at this juncture of the season, but here we are. And Cincinnati jumped all over Atlanta to start. They got off to a 21-0 start, and Joe Burrow seems to be really on par with his receivers, hooking up with Jamar Chase for a couple early scores. Now, Atlanta did fight back in that second quarter. They were able to put up 17 points in that quarter, but that was pretty much as close as they were going to get, because in the second half, they were held scoreless. And again, Cincinnati was able to get up another touchdown to make the final score 35-17. After 7 weeks now, it seems that the Cincinnati offensive line has been able to get their chemistry in order. In the first 2 weeks, they gave up 13 sacks. And since then, they've only given up 11 in 5 weeks of play. And now this extra time has been able to allow Cincinnati to really get into the mix of things. Joe Burrow's been able to utilize the time to see receivers like Tyler Boyd. We've seen T. Higgins in the mix, and also the tight end Hayden Hurst has been really effective. And of course, this is all led by Jamar Chase, one of the best receivers in the league, and he's been having a really nice couple of weeks from the previous matchup against the Saints, and now this week he's had 4 touchdowns and just seems to be shaking off that early season rust and that slump that he was in after the season opener. The next few weeks coming up, Cincinnati's schedule really softens up, and they have some opportunity to really make some ground in the AFC wildcard race. I got to give Atlanta credit. Coming back from 21-0 is definitely not an easy task to handle, but they made it somewhat of a game in that second quarter with those 17 points. But everything went awry after they lost A.J. Terrell to that hamstring injury, and it looked pretty serious. I think he's going to be missing some time. But even so, with them now at 3-4 and still tied with Tampa Bay for the division lead, they still are very much in the wild card mix or even the division title, as the NFC South is wide open. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers took on the Carolina Panthers, and the Bucs came into this game as big favorites, well above double digits, and the Panthers were on the tanking side of things as they just traded away CMC, but Carolina was able to come up with a resounding 21-3 victory. Really surprising, especially with the lack of weapons that they have. The Tampa Bay run defense has been one of their biggest strongholds, as they've been able to stonewall opposing offenses and really keep them in check. But on Sunday, the Carolina Panthers, led by Dante Foreman and Chuba Hubbard, were able to combine for a well over 150 yards on the ground. And even that, with their third-string quarterback with PJ Walker at the helm, he had a really nice day with 2 touchdown passes, one to DJ Moore, and the one that really clinched the game towards the end of the fourth quarter, making it 21-3. For Tampa Bay's offense, we've known that their offensive line has been in shambles. They've been struggling to protect Brady and create running lanes for their running attack. And the problem is also they have really poor talent on the outside. Excluding Mike Evans and a healthy Chris Godwin, we've seen kind of a revolving door of receivers, whether they're being healthy or signed off the street, like Cole Beasley had a short stint in Tampa. And Tom has really struggled to get consistent chemistry with his receivers. We saw frustrations against the Saints last week against Pittsburgh, and again, the same thing kind of happened again. On the opening drive, we had a nice play between him and Mike Evans, or so we thought, where Brady lofted a pass to Mike Evans, and we seemed to have had it in the breadbasket, but somehow slipped through, got tipped up in the air, and ended up being incomplete. Really weird sequence. And from then on out, I think the wind was taken out of their sails and totally deflated the team. And they were thinking, like, if Mike Evans can't make that play, what are we even doing here? We're not going to be able to beat this team. And they played like it. Their offensive line got steamrolled. Brian Burns had a great day. He sacked Brady and really got in the face, forced a couple of hits. And he really knocked off the timing of Brady and disrupted the game flow that they were trying to install. The only reason why I'm holding on to the Buccaneers winning the NFC South is just because their composition is just so weak. The Falcons are an up-and-coming team. They played well, but they did lose to the Bucs earlier on. And they still don't have a lot of talent to compete with the Bucs, despite the Bucs' own struggles. The Panthers are a total rebuilding team. They did show out on Sunday, but I don't see them replicating that moving forward. They probably want to tank, get as many assets for the future, and get that nice quarterback for the future. And same thing for the Saints. I mean, their offensive room or their quarterback room is in shambles as well. They just don't have any consistency since Drew Brees retired. So out of all those teams, I trust the Bucs the most. It's just that I just don't trust them to stay too long in the playoffs. And I see an early exit in the first round of the playoffs. We saw the Cleveland Browns take on the Baltimore Ravens, and this is a matchup of two big teams in the AFC North, a really crucial matchup. The Browns are coming into this game coming off a few losses now after an early 2-1 start. And the Ravens have had issues closing out games in the fourth quarter. But on Sunday, the Ravens were able to handle business and come up with a 23-20 victory. Now, Baltimore didn't get off to the best of starts. They were down early to the Browns, but they were able to come up by halftime up 13-10. But issues came up in the second half where they just couldn't really extend the lead. Now, they were up 20-10 at one point, but the Browns were able to hang around, cut the lead to 7 points at a time, and then they even cut the lead down to 3 in the fourth quarter. But when the going got tough, they had issues with holding onto the football, and their backup running back, Justice Hill, coughed at the ball in plus side territory with a chance for them to either extend the lead or at least milk off more time off the clock. But the Browns recovered, and they had a chance either to get the go-ahead touchdown or at least tie and send this game into overtime. The Browns had some issues in the Ravens side of the 50 where they had a decent shot at the field goal, but a critical false start penalty pushed them back 5 yards. And then the ensuing kick was blocked, and that really sealed the deal for the Ravens' victory, holding on 23-20. And the Ravens, I got to give them credit. They've had issues this year closing out games. They sort of exorcised those demons now. They've held on to a couple home victories, one against the Cincinnati Bengals and now against the Browns. And those are big division wins, whether they've had issues or not. We've seen them cough up leads to the Miami Dolphins, the New York Giants too. But these division wins are big. And they still have a tiebreaker over in Cincinnati as well. And with Baltimore's schedule softening up, I do see them going on a little bit of a run. And Dak Prescott made his return after missing the previous 5 games due to that thumb injury against the Detroit Lions. And he was pretty solid. He didn't really have to do too much. Even so, I was really happy to see Dak get back into the flow of things. And with their schedule being a little softer in this middle part of the season, they can kind of have like a preseason 2.0. He can get that chemistry back with receivers like Noah Brown, CD Lamb, Dalton Schultz is back in the lineup. They can get back on the same page as he missed 5 games previously and develop that crucial chemistry as they make a postseason run. The Dallas defense forced 5 turnovers on the day, and they had a really interesting sequence when Detroit was driving in the red zone and had a chance for the go-ahead touchdown, but Michael Parsons made a nice play to tackle their tight end short of the goal line. And on the ensuing play, they forced a fumble, and that was pretty much it and ended any hopes of Detroit snatching an upset victory on Sunday. Trayvon Diggs came up with a turnover as well with an interception on the day, and Micah Parsons came in with another sack. Their whole defense has been their calling card for this season, and they'll continue to ride that moving forward, and I do see them continuing to improve and being a big threat in the NFC. Green Bay Packers took on the Washington Commanders as this was Taylor Heineke's first start of the season in place of Carson Wentz, who's missing some time due to a broken finger injury. Despite the Packers starting the game off with a 14-3 lead, they had issues struggling to hold on to leads in the past, and the same thing happened on Sunday as they gave up 20 straight points and they were trailing in the fourth quarter 23-14. A nice touchdown pass got them back to the game thanks to Aaron Jones, but there still seems to be issues with Rodgers connecting with his receivers like Romeo Doubs and Christian Woods. Doubs in particular had a really tough day. I feel like he's just really pressing and overthinking plays. He's had some really bad drops that ended Packers drives on Sunday. And a lot of this pressure with him, Christian Woods, just being young guys in the NFL, trying to live up to their predecessors in Davante Adams, who's arguably the best receiver in the game. It's just a tall task to ask any rookie wide receiver, let alone a established or veteran receiver, comparing them to Davante Adams. Now, I think the big thing that the Packers have had issues with this season, not only that their quarterback, their offense has been in disarray, is their defense. I came into this year thinking that their defense would be their calling card. They've been great in seasons past, led by Jair Alexander. They've had a decent pass rush, and they've been able to hold opponents to 20 points. But in this season, they've been struggling to contain teams and hold on to leads. We've seen Taylor Heineke throw some nice passes, especially on third down, and really utilize guys like Terry McLaurin and taking advantage of those matchups. So with those issues arising, the issues that continue to play the Packers will continue to do so. And with them already being down a couple of games now, 3 games actually, to the Minnesota Vikings in the NFC North, I think their only path to the playoffs is really through the wild card round. So a side topic that's been brought up now has been, will Brady or Rodgers be able to guide their team to the postseason? Now, both are older quarterbacks. They've been having issues this season. They're both number 12. And they had a head-to-head matchup where Rodgers and the Packers came out victorious, but they still hold the same record. I think the biggest difference is that Green Bay is facing tougher competition with the Vikings in the NFC North, whereas the Bucs are still leading the division at 3-4. And like I said, that their NFC South rivals are just so lackluster. I see the Bucs winning the division title by basically default. And even so, if these two teams were able to somehow get on a run and make the postseason as a wild card or even win the division, now if both teams still make the playoffs, that's something to admire, but I don't see their stay as too long, as teams like the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Vikings, the Giants, for starters, are just very good teams that have started off these 7 weeks really strongly. And I think they're just in a different class in the NFC compared to these two teams. So I know these are quarterbacks that we root for. They're going to be in the Hall of Fame one day, but it's very possible that we may have a postseason that doesn't feature either one of them. The Tennessee Titans took on the Indianapolis Colts, and this is now the Titans' 4th straight victory over their division rivals. And despite the Colts shuffling their quarterback, whether it be Carson Wentz or Phillip Rivers or now Matt Ryan, it doesn't matter. They've all ended up losing to the Tennessee Titans, and it's just some team that has their number right now. Now, according to reports, moving forward, the Colts are actually going to be benching Matt Ryan, who had a shoulder sprain, but it's not the reason due to his benching. They just want to see what else Sam Ehlinger can bring to the table, so he will be the starter moving forward. And now, with the Titans at 4-2, they've created enough distance against probably their biggest rival at this point. I don't know if the Jags are going to be able to contend in the AFC South. The Texans are obviously in rebuilding mode. I don't see them as a viable threat. So this is really the Titans' division to lose. Now, Derrick Henry has had a really nice game against the Colts and had over 100 yards rushing. And Ryan Tannehill, despite being okay or not the best at certain times, he's been able to get the job done, and they're 4-2 right now. So I do see the Titans as a team that's the favorite to win the AFC South. It's just a matter of how they can contend against the bigger teams, especially the juggernauts in a very competitive AFC. Moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the New York Giants. The Giants have been one of the more exciting stories of this year, as they came into this game at 5-1. Coach Brian Daboll, like I said, has been a really good candidate for head coach of the year, and he's been able to motivate this team and really do a lot with a little, especially in terms of their wide receiving room. Saquon Barkley had a really good game, had over 100 yards rushing, and Daniel Jones, who was probably under conversations of being benched this season, but he's been solid recently and been making plays that are winning plays. And he had a great day with 200 yards passing, but also 100 yards rushing. The Jaguars had their own issues in this game where I felt like they were in control, but they had miscues in plus side territory. They had a crucial fumble and then also didn't convert on a 4th and 1, which is something I find odd. I've seen Trevor Lawrence get stuffed on 4th and 1 a couple times too many. He's just such a large man, and I think he's about 6'5" or so. It just seems that it's such an easy thing to do, just, bury down behind your offensive line. I guess they're just not getting a consistent push, and he's getting stuffed at the line of scrimmage or even losing yards at that point. So the Jaguars missed opportunities to really either extend the lead or really put this game out of reach. Saquon Barkley, I think, deserves that contract extension. He's second in the league in rushing. I would still pass on Daniel Jones and giving him that extension, maybe franchise tag him or give him a 1-year prove-it deal, maybe because of the excuse that he just didn't have receivers. The previous excuses have been that he doesn't have the O-line. There have been issues to Saquon. So not the most fair assessment to grade Daniel Jones. It's more like an incomplete. It's just like, what do we have here in our quarterback room? The chance to upgrade the quarterback position, I think that's just something that the Giants would have to do. And if they have to move off Daniel Jones, then so be it. The Giants almost gave this game away in every which way possible in the final drive for the Jaguars, where they had a couple opportunities. They had an interception that was overturned due to a penalty. They extended drives via defensive penalties left and right. And even on the last play of the game, they saw the Jaguars get it down to the 1-yard line, but they stopped them just in time short of the goal line for the go-ahead score. So the Giants is some team that just has something together. I don't know what exactly it is, but Ryan Clark said something funny where they're like the just enoughers. They do just enough to get the win. And I think that's a perfect analogy for them. They find ways to win, and right now if they just keep playing at 500, that's enough for a double-digit win team. So I do see them making the playoffs at this point. Transitioning to the Seattle Seahawks taking on the LA Chargers, I thought this was a classic trap game for the Chargers, as they've shown that they can really let their guard down and let a team come into their own building and kind of walk all over them. And this happened again on Sunday, where Seattle got off to a strong start, taking an early 14-0 lead. They used a running game led by Kenneth Walker, who's been great since the injury to Rashad Penny, and Geno Smith has been really efficient as well. He doesn't put up prolific stats, but doesn't turn the ball over. He had an interception in this game, but that wasn't his fault. I saw the replay where the receiver, Tyler Lockett, had a chance to catch it, but the ball popped up into the defensive player's hands, so I can't really blame Geno Smith on that interception. Defensively, the Seahawks also played a great game. They had 2 turnovers forced and also stopped the Chargers in plus-side territory, and that's not a really easy thing to do. We know the Chargers have a bevy of weapons. Now, Austin Eckler is one of the best running backs in terms of getting in the end zone, and Mike Williams is a very talented deep threat, and Keenan Allen even came back into this game. So despite all of that, they were able to come up with key stops when necessary, and they rode the running attack as well and ate up clock. The Chargers on paper could be an AFC powerhouse. They made so many moves this offseason, from J.C. Jackson, Khalil Mack, and to really shore up that defense. But whatever happens to this team, they end up either misfiring or not executing, or they have just terrible injury luck. And now with a couple more injuries sustained in this game, we saw J.C. Jackson now sustain a patellar injury and he's done for the year. Mike Williams left the game with that high ankle sprain. He'll be out for a few weeks. The Chargers continue to be a very frustrating team for me to watch. They just have so much talent on both sides of the ball. They have a generational quarterback talent. They still find ways to lose or underperform, whether it's due to injuries or lack of execution, gambling too many times on 4th down. They just don't seem to have it all together. They're not at that level of the Chiefs or the Bills, and they had a really big opportunity to keep pace with the Chiefs and go into bye week at 5-2, but they totally laid an egg on Sunday. So that's pretty disappointing to see, and I just don't think I can buy into them as a true contender. I would label them as a pretender. Now the Seahawks are a team that's been so impressive to me. I think that they've been playing great given the circumstances. Geno Smith is personally my pick to be comeback player of the year at this point. He's having a great season by his standards, and to see him get an opportunity after being kind of left for dead after that short tenure with the New York Jets has been a great thing for him to see. He's been really seizing the moment and taking advantage of it. Now, they do lead the division at 4-3, so that's very impressive given that they came into the year as probably one of the worst rosters in the league. And despite that, they're leading the division through 7 weeks. So hats off to Seattle, and they're really doing something great this year. In a rematch of Super Bowl 54, Kansas City traveled to San Francisco to play the 49ers, and the Niners just got a new toy in Christian McCaffrey. He had a limited role on Sunday as he's just getting integrated into the Kyle Shanahan offense, but in his limited reps, he looked pretty solid, and they'll continue to integrate him into this offense. But the attention though has to definitely be focused on the Kansas City Chiefs as they were able to rally from an early 10-0 deficit. Mahomes threw an interception in the first quarter but finished the game with 3 touchdown passes and over 400 yards passing. I think he's been able to utilize these new weapons like MVS and Juju Smith-Schuster really well. And despite them losing Tyreek Hill in the offseason, they've been able to make up that loss of production with a kind of a strength in numbers mantra. And we know that Andy Reid has been one of the best play callers in NFL history, and he's been able to dial up great plays that really utilize these new players' strengths. The Niners, despite them adding in CMC, he'll definitely be more of a focal point in the offense moving forward. There's injuries on the defensive side of the ball is definitely a concern, especially with Emmanuel Mosley being out for the season, and he was one of their best cornerbacks, and they're still having Nick Bosa, who returned in this game, but he's still banged up with that groin injury. So if he's able to be healthy, he can definitely wreck a lot of games. But there are a lot of pieces right now with this San Francisco 49ers team that look great on paper with the names that they have. But the thing is, they have some things to work on, but they do have a lot of time, and I still see them as favorites to win the NFC West. Tua made his return to the Miami Dolphins. He looked great on the opening drive. He had great quick passes out to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and finished the drive off with a touchdown pass to Raheem Mostert. Now, with their schedule softening up in late October into early November, they have an opportunity to go on a run, and this is kind of like what Dak Prescott is going through in Dallas. After missing a few games, the chemistry needs to be reestablished, and this is kind of like a preseason 2.0. On Monday Night Football, the Chicago Bears took on the New England Patriots, and this was a game where the Chicago Bears were coming off a loss to the Washington Commanders on Thursday Night Football. And in that game, we saw that the Bears really struggled to move the ball efficiently and score. But the Patriots, they sort of have a quarterback controversy brewing as 2 quarterbacks were taking snaps in this game, and Mac Jones has been the first-round draft pick in the 2021 draft, but he has missed a couple weeks due to a high ankle sprain. And during that time, the offenses have been running more efficiently with rookie quarterback Bailey Zappi. After trailing 10-0 early, the Patriots were driving into Bears territory, and Mac Jones was quickly yanked after throwing an interception. And the ensuing drive, Bailey Zappi took over the game. He had 2 touchdown drives and allowed the Patriots to retake the lead. The Bears came back and they were able to get a couple scores to retake control, and they continued that in the second half, winning quite comfortably 33-14. I was really impressed with Justin Fields as he had a really nice day using his arm and his legs, and he was also very smart with his decision making and placing the ball where it needed to be. To address this quarterback controversy for the New England Patriots, I think that in the second half, with those 2 interceptions and the Patriots being held scoreless in that second half, I think Bailey Zappi created just enough doubt for me to lean back and put Mac Jones back in the starting position. He was their first round draft pick last year. That's a big investment, and you hope to see that turn into something of fruition. Given that Zappe stunk it up in the second half, I would go back to Mac moving forward and just see how it goes, but he continues to struggle. Again, yank him out and give Bailey Zappe another shot at the starting position. For my offensive player of the week, I'm going to name Joe Burrow again, as he had 481 yards passing and 3 touchdowns on the day, really slicing and dicing the Atlanta defense. For my defensive player of the week, I'm going to name Matthew Judon, as he had 2.5 sacks, which really changed the complexion in that first half and got the Patriots back into the game. For my teams of the week, I'm going to start with the Carolina Panthers, as they had a nice upset victory against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that this shows that any team can win on any given Sunday. The Seattle Seahawks are another team that impressed me. I mean, beating up on the LA Chargers is a big deal, and they played really well in recent weeks, being 4-3 and leading the vaunted NFC West division. Also, the Kansas City Chiefs, I think, really impressed me with that resounding 44-23 victory. And also, the New York Giants really impressed me this week, as they've been able to come back from another fourth quarter deficit and find a way to win and move on to 6-1. Teams trending downwards, it's definitely have to be the Bucs and Packers for the obvious reasons listed before in this podcast, and also the San Francisco 49ers, as despite their health coming back and they're getting players back into the fold, them getting routed by the Kansas City Chiefs was really disappointing. And that's it for this episode of Spectator Sports. As always, thank you for watching, and subscribe to the Instagram and TikTok pages. Until next time, take care.